Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the south of Portugal for round 5 of the Blancpain Sprint Series of 2015. We've got qualifying coming up for you now. My name's Jack Nichols here in the commentary box alongside John Watson ahead of this 1 hour session, which will determine the grid for the qualifying race, which is coming up later on today, which will in turn decide the grid for the main race tomorrow. 19.9 degrees the air temperature at the moment. Doesn't feel like it at the moment, does it, John?
Certainly not in the commentary booth. It's much chillier than that, and track temperature only 18.7. Waiting for the sun to come out, of course. That will later in the day bring the wind that is always present here at Portimao. But what a wonderful circuit. 4.6 kilometres in length, 15 corners, particularly the final long double right-hand corner onto pit straight. A real white knuckle ride for everybody here in these GT3 cars.
And as far as the championship is concerned, it's Robin Freins and Laurens Vanthoor who are top of the championship, but they've only got 15 points advantage over Vincent Abril and Maximilian Buch, who with their victory last time out in Moscow have closed in the gap to our championship leaders. So it's going to be very interesting to see what we have in this qualifying session. Freins and Vanthoor have taken 2 of the 4 pole positions so far this season. Nogaro, it was Ortelli and Riquelme who took pole, and last time out in Moscow it was Nicky Katzberg and Albert von Taxis for the Reiter Engineering Lamborghini team. And don't be surprised to see Nicky Katzberg going quickly again today, because he was quickest man in free practice 1. Here's a look at the Blancpain Sprint Series standings as they are now. Freins and Vanthoor 15 points ahead of Abril and Buch. Then we've got Attila Abreu and Valdeno Brito. They're just some 4 points behind Abril and Buch, so they're still very much in the championship fight. And really, I think it's those top 3 pairings that have kind of separated themselves away and will be the men contending come the end of the season in Zandvoort. Kaka Bueno and Sergio Jimenez, they're down in 7th place. Marcus Winkelhock and Nicky Mermanov down in 10th and 11th places in the championship as a result of not scoring any points in Moscow, because Nicky Mermanov had to dash off before the racing got underway. So Winkelhock did all of the races by himself, and as a result wasn't eligible for championship points. So that's how it looks in terms of the drivers' standings, and there are the cars lined up with Maxi Buch. A new helmet for Maximilian Buch then. It's gone blue to match the car, his 84 Bentley machine, which we're expecting to be strong around this circuit.
Yeah, certainly they were in the second free practice on Friday afternoon. This car, Vincent Abril was the driver who did the time of the 2 drivers, 1:44.8. And expect the Bentley to be really, really competitive. It's the nature of the layout of this racetrack, I think, will play to the car's strengths. Again, particularly that very long right-hand corner, turn 15, coming on to the main start-finish straight, where that car is going to be, I think, at its best.
There you can see Alexei Karachev at the wheel of his number 70 GT Russian team at Mercedes SLS. He and Christoph Buschu, the 2 drivers in there for this weekend. Alexei Vasiliev and Marco Asma out in the other GT Russian car, the 2 Mercedes SLSs, which should be strong here. We had Mercedes win a couple of years ago in the FIA GT1 World Championship with, I think it was Thomas Jaeger and Nicky Pastorelli who took the overall victory that year in 2012. So Mercedes are a very strong outfit here. Max Buch has won here in a Mercedes a couple of years ago in the GT3 European Championship.
Yeah, I think that the difficulty is Mercedes with the SLS, it's pretty much now at the end of its homologation. They've got the new AMG GT3 Coupe coming in 2016. So this car, still a great, particularly as a long-distance car, a great race car. But you've got now the Bentley Continentals coming in. We've still got Audi with the WRT team, and they've got the G2, the Gen 2 version of that, also now coming in on stream in GT3. So everybody is moving slightly ahead of the curve from the point where Mercedes were. Still a great car, and do not dismiss it under any circumstances. Nothing could be more surprising than to see a Mercedes standing in the winner's podium. Maybe I shouldn't say surprising, maybe more pleasing.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be on the winner's podium.
So 5 seconds to go before qualifying gets underway. It will be split into, first of all, 2 15-minute sessions and then a 10-minute pole position shootout. Now this is interesting. Craig Dolby and Sean Walkinshaw are here for Always Evolving Motorsport, the Nissan now run by JRM. They have been with MRS for the season so far, but now they've decided to move to JRM, a very experienced Nissan team.
Yeah, they basically build the shells, I think, for Nissan, and they've got a lot of experience with the car. And I think Sean Walkinshaw's effective team running under the always involving motorsport banner, along with Craig Dolby, and they probably feel that they should have had more results, maybe a little bit more performance also from the Nissan than they were getting earlier in the season. So that no doubt has prompted, or in part prompted, that move to JMR, and let's see what they do. Again, a car we know in certain circuits, particularly we saw at Paul Ricard, how strong that car is in a straight line. There isn't as much straight line running here in Portimao other than the main start-finish straight, and of course the Nissan will be a horse down that, probably reaching nearly 260 kilometers per hour as we go with Robin Freins in the WRT Audi and championship leaders.
Yep. They took 4 wins in a row. They won every race at Brands Hatch and every race at Zolder, but it was a little bit of a weaker weekend at Moscow, with a retirement in the first race after an incident at turn 1, and then they had to start at the back of the grid, managed to work their way up to 5th position, but that wasn't without a spin from Laurens Vanthoor.
And of course they were on the back foot because Vanthoor went off in practice,
yes,
and damaged the car. So when the whole weekend starts off badly, very difficult to get back on the pace and recover to the level that really one would expect you to be running at.
Norbert Siedler for the 333 Ferrari Rinaldi team there. We expect to see them near the front, although they didn't have that much pace in free practice. Both the Ferrari and the BMWs were not looking too strong there, and they've said all year that the problem for the Ferrari has been getting it to work in qualifying. Their race pace is no problem, but they haven't quite figured out how to get it going in qualifying, but they did for the first time in Moscow, and as a result picked up a 2nd place in race 1 and a 3rd place in race 2. This is Albert von Taxis, and he's coming down towards the final corner now. Still sounds like he's not pushing, is he?
No, I think everybody was coming into the pits. In fact, what's he going to do? He's going to stay out. I mean, literally, it's track temperatures. Wave double yellow flags. Now, there's something we don't know the reason for. We've got a green light on the timing and scoring indicating that the track's clear, but at the exit of turn 15, wave double yellow flag, so there must be an incident or something. Or there's a lack of communication somewhere between the flag marshalling and race control.
Yeah, that is a little unusual, although they've half stopped. But you got a yellow flag there and
there's a green flag further down as they come down to the end of the pit straight. So whether there was something, maybe a bit of debris or something on the circuit that we weren't able to, so maybe we'll pass on that one and not focus too much on the young chap. Probably had a night out in the tiles last night and still recovering.
So down over the start-finish line then, this is Stefan Riquelme, the Monegasque racer, into turn 1. And to give you some representation, 1 minute 44.871 is the quickest time we've seen so far this weekend. 1 minute 44.871. Baldeno Brito looking pretty chilled there. So yeah, I'd expect pole position to be in the low 44s, most likely. That's a good time. Brito watching his teammate Attila Abreu in the 77 car, dropping down towards the hairpin at turn 5 now.
Major overtaking part of the racetrack, bumpy on the racing line, and again relatively easily defended, but in doing a defence you open yourself up to being the undercut on the exit, as they then climb up at a turn 5 through the curve of 6 and then into the rather tricky braking into turn 7, followed by the also slightly unusual turn 8 that leads onto this part of the racetrack. It's a real compression at the bottom, turn 9, then up the hill, looking for the apex. You can't see it from the driver's seat. You've got to sort of prejudge it, get it wrong and you'll be off the track. Then again a secondary compression as the cars come up to turn 13, and from here on it's about partly getting the track position precise, because turn 14 in itself, it's a 2-part corner in reality, although it's only called a single corner. So this is now in theory flat out, especially when you've got fresher rubber, and cars get light just as they come across the crest. Then again the compression, and a late cut indeed by the Audi back into the pits with just over 9 minutes remaining. Frank Stippler, always happy, always calm, unflappable Frank.
Certainly is.
Saying that early in the morning is an unflappable comment.
So his teammate James Nash is out there on the track. Here comes Enzo Eid. He's going to give us our first representative lap time of the session. and it's going to be a 1 minute 46.7, so a good sort of second or so slower, but it is colder today than yesterday. It was the track temperature was up at 25.5 degrees when we had free practice 2 yesterday, so don't be surprised if we maybe don't actually get that quick. Ooh, very wide on the way into the final corner there. That is Philippe Salaquada at the wheel of the ISR Audi.
But it's fastest in first and second sectors. So let's see what he does. First 1:45.064.
That's a pretty good lap time actually.
Yeah,
for Philippe Salaquada.
1.4 seconds quicker than James Nash as they go back to the Mercedes. They thunder their way up the hill, up into turn 13. I mean, the track temperature is cool. Although there's no wind currently, the wind will come later in the afternoon, but there's not any sun really breaking through the slightly overcast cloud above, so it's going to take maybe 2 or 3 laps for the driver to get the confidence to get the heat into the tyre, and particularly coming through here, if you are uncomfortable with the feel of the car, you're not going to be committed.
Maximilian Buch has just gone fastest of anyone in Sector 1. He's making his way up towards turns 7 and 8 at the moment. Across the line goes Karachev to set a 1 minute 47.3. Here is Buch. Has he been held up? It looked as though the car got out of the way quite cleanly. Nice little onboard camera here with Buki as he comes up now towards the second sector split. 32.5 in Sector 1, which is good. Middle sector time will be coming up shortly, and it's a 33.8, so well, that's 7/10 of a second slower than the middle sector of Philippe Salaquada. So I wonder if he did get held up behind, what car was it?
There's one of the Mercedes, but
yeah, I think it was the 71 GT Russian car. So that may have cost Buch some time there as he comes now down towards the final corner.
Well, this, of all the cars here this weekend, is the one that I feel is going to be potentially the principal challenger to the Audis, and comes through this turn 15 and thunders up to the exit. I mean, the car looks like it's got reasonably good grip even relatively early in the lap. Max Buch comes across the line, 44.8, and that's a pretty impressive opening. That just literally, in fact, is fractionally quicker than the best time we saw from Vincent Abril in this car yesterday afternoon. So I wonder, did somebody tell me something I didn't know this morning, or is it just my natural instinct to be on the money?
But we'll see if Buch goes again and whether he can improve on that middle sector, because as we say, he was 7/10 slower than Salaquada in the middle sector. Of course, the different sectors can play into the hands of different cars. This is Albert von Turner-Taxis, meanwhile, in the 88 Reiter Engineering Lamborghini, the car that started on pole position for the main race last time out in Moscow, but Albert got a little bit swamped at the start and was unfortunate, really. It was, 5 cars into one doesn't go.
Well, I mean, we did ask Nicky Katzberg on the grid, was Albert capable of handling the pressure of starting in pole position with a load of, tough nuts all around him? And Nicky gave the thumbs up, but he couldn't do anything else. But poor Albert got literally mugged big time into turn 1, and that was their race finished.
Now, Max Buch's teammate, another Max, Max van Splunteren, has just gone 0.6 of a second quicker than Buch in the middle sector and has just gone second quickest overall. So there's definitely time to be found in that middle sector for Maximilian Buch. So I think we still may have low 44s. This is Sean Walkinshaw at the wheel now of the 173 JRM run Nissan as they head down the back straight. They've had a bit of misfortune this year, the Nissans. The Moscow circuit didn't really suit them at all. So they were never going to be strong there, but they have looked good throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, the car, it's a little bit sort of circuit critical, and I don't know whether Portimao really is going to play to its strengths or its weaknesses. There are a couple of low speed corners, certainly down at turn 5, the hairpin, maybe turn 3 likewise, where traction is at a premium, and maybe the Nissan, that isn't its strongest value, but it is a very good race car, and looking to JMR to try and take the basic package and move it forward. And also gone is that sort of very sort of duck eggy blue paint scheme that we're more familiar with. And now it looks like fire engine red and a Union flag on the top of the windscreen. I mean, a pretty bold statement saying the Brits are running this car now.
Yes, absolutely. So 2 corners to go for the Nissan. Sean Walkinshaw at the wheel. Meanwhile, Max Buch's going quicker and quicker. He's done a 44.4 and he's just done a personal best. Oh, he's going to get held up here. Sean Walkinshaw has to go around the outside of Albert von Turner-Taxis, and that is not ideal in any way. Across the line comes the Scott, and it's up to 4th place, but there's the teammate Craig Dolby.
I mean, and then it's more or less in spite of that. I mean, he currently is, 0.6 of a second behind 3rd place Max van Splutteren, and so that was a lap from Sean Molkenshaw, which could potentially, I've seen him go 3rd quickest. He would have lost maybe the best part of half a second just having to get around Albert von Taxis. This is the part of the racetrack.
And this is Maximilian Buch, who I think is about to improve on his lap time. He's on a 44.451 at the moment. Across the line, is it an improvement? Yes, it is, a 43.902. And that's not even his fastest final sector. Lost a 10th or so there. So that's a great lap from Maximilian Buch. And we're already into the high 43s. They are cancelling track times, though, here. The race control have cancelled a lap time from Attila Abreu for not respecting the track limits. And this is Caca Bueno we're seeing now, the teammate, the sister car in that Brazilian BMW squad. And track limits came into question last year as well, if you remember. Laurens Vanthoor ran wide out of turn 4 to get a better run on the Grasser Lamborghini. He made an overtake into the hairpin and was subsequently stripped of that position. So track limits are something to keep an eye out on, as is the time of that Caca Bueno car, and he goes 6th.
I mean, don't start me in track limits. It's driving me nuts, from whether it's from karting all the way up to whatever we're talking about here, GT3. I mean, track limits are there to be observed and not to be abused. And abuse of track limits is, in my opinion, rightly now being focused upon, and penalties are being given. Penalty principally is the best lap, or your lap where you have abused track limits is deleted from the timing. So not only have you lost that time, whoa! Now that all went wrong just at the crest, coming through turn 15. The back got light, and then the pendulum effect took over, and around the Ferrari went.
Marco Seefried.
Marco Seefried. And, well, I don't think I've ever seen a car spin, and all the time I've come into Portimao at that part of the corner, and that was a wake-up call there. It was just simply at the point where the car's at its slightest, the back end, and that's mainly down to just lack of rear tyre temperature.
Yep, so there goes the spin for Marco Seefried. A little bit dramatic as there's Norbert Siedler.
That's another set of tyres we would like to have had use of. I don't know whether he's done much damage to them or not. Probably flat spotted the left rear, if nothing else. But that's Maximilian Buch, having had a very good run of 4 flying laps, the back into the pit, still quickest by just under a full second.
Yeah, very impressive time from Maximilian Buch.
No, I'm not going to mention it. No, I'm not going to go there.
Second at the moment is Robin Freins in the WRT Audi. 44.847.
That is getting close to abusing track limits on the inside of turn 15. I mean, getting almost 4 wheels over the red and white line. So again, it's going to be observed, and it will be penalised. So
Caca Bueno goes up to 4th quickest with that lap time, although he has had a lap cancelled as well for track limits. So we've had a lot of cancellations out there as they drop down the hill now. This is Marco Seefried in the Rinaldi Ferrari. They're only down in
14th place.
Yes.
They've not really done a flying lap. The lap where he spun was his first flying lap, so that's now been cancelled. We're going to watch the Ferrari coming back to the part of the racetrack, and he may be a bit more circumspect just as he turns in. Yeah, a big lift there just to ensure that this time the Ferrari was going to come out of the corner, pointing in the direction the track is flowing. So he comes across the start-finish line and does a 147.2. Still stays in 14th position. Again, this is a car, I think, of coming down to turn 1. Wow, the back end of the Ferrari clearly has got a mind of its own, and that's after one good flying lap. So for Marco Seefried, this is a real handful, and not... Again, just the back end seems to be completely independently thinking of what's going on. You know, from behind the steering wheel, staying well over to the left to avoid the bumps on the right, then back to the right to get the entry into turn 5. Again, the back end, I don't know if it's strange, because this car normally looks to be extremely well balanced, but here this morning in Portimao, it's proving to be a right handful indeed.
So up now through turn 8. Fantastic stuff with this onboard camera as we then plunge down and through the left kink at 9, which is flat out.
Again, you can't see where the apex is. You've got to sort of pre-assess it and then just hope that you've done it correctly. Then again, down the hill.
This is reasonable so far, actually, for Siegfried.
Well, he's got a personal best in the middle sector, which shows an improvement, but the opening sector, there's nothing there that would indicate. Now watch again into turn 14, gets the apex, clips that, well, gets it just about perfectly. Again, still having to fight the steering of the back end of the car, wanting to, again, a confidence lift coming through 15. Hard work behind the steering wheel. Car not really giving the driver much of a comfortable ride. So Siegfried, 147.2 his last lap. He goes up to 5th place, 145.1. So in spite of all that seesawing on the steering wheel, he has made progress finally, and getting the Ferrari will catch 1.2 seconds behind the lap from Max Buch in the Bentley, but that's a big leap forward.
Yep.
And if he can now find consistency in the balance of the car by getting the front and rear tire temperatures almost to match each other, as the checkered flag brings the session to an end.
Yep, and Marco Siegfried is the last man out there. Everyone else had returned to the pit, so it's a 43.9. Oh, and Philippe Salaquada out there as well. A 43.9, then the quickest time we've seen in that first quali session. The way it works is that you have your 2 qualifying sessions, then the quickest 10 cars go through to the pole position shootout. So we've still got plenty of time to come before we find out who's on pole position for the Blancpain Sprint Series qualifying race later on today. We go on air at 2 o'clock local time, which is the same time as the UK, as we see Marcus Finkelhock now getting strapped into that Phoenix Audi. Jules Simkoviak actually did a good job in that last, or was it Max? I thought it was Max van Splinteren who was going out first. Yeah, it was Max van Splinteren. Did a good job in that first session. 3rd quickest. In fact, let's have a look at the results. It's the Bentley's 1st and 3rd here in the Algarve. Max Buch and Vincent Abril quickest. Robin Freins 2nd quickest. 3rd quickest, Max van Splinteren. So good job from them. Caca Bueno did a good job actually in that BMW Team Brazil car to end up 4th quickest ahead of Marco Siegfried in the Ferrari. And Alexei Karachev 6th quickest for GT Russian. That's really good stuff actually from Alexei Karachev, because he is the AM in that Pro-Am pairing. And he's ended 6th quickest, so keep an eye out for the Mercedes when it's in the hand of Christophe Bouchou. Sean Walkinshaw 7th, Attila Abreu 8th, Philippe Salaquada 9th, Riquelme, Nicky Mayer Melnoff, James Nash completing the top 12. And then completing our 15 cars, we've got Enzo Eid down there, we've got Albert von Turn and Taxis down there, and Alexei Vasiliev. So that's the first group done. Now we move on to Group 2. Already Robin Freins there examining the data. So they're just comparing sectors. There's the wheel guns fire off. I can't really hear them as much. But yeah, it'll be Lawrence Vanthoor now who will take the wheel in that number 1 WRT Audi. Difficult time in Spa for Lawrence Vanthoor. In fact, it's this season has had a couple of mistakes from Vanthoor in it, both at Spa and last time out he spun at Moscow, had an accident at Brands Hatch, so it hasn't been, the cleanest of seasons so far for Vanthoor. I
mean, it hasn't, and you expect sort of these stellar performances every time Lawrence Vanthoor's behind a car. But I think he's pushing the car literally to the edge of the limits. And because it is a very finely balanced race car, it's a nervous race car. It's not what I would call something that you can feel comfortable. And you always know that there's an edge to the car. Keeping it on that very fine edge, if you can do it, you're going to be really quick and you're going to win a lot of races. But if you get away from it or it gets away from you, then you're going to be off the track and in some cases into something more substantial. And I think it's just an indication of how hard Lawrence Vanthoor and others. Robin Freins got caught out, remember, the first race of the season in Nagaro, coming out of the final turn, just the back end got away and it spun across the track and hit a concrete barrier. We didn't think it was a big impact, but when we saw the car we realised, well, that's not going to be racing this weekend. So everybody in the WRT Audi, and in fact all the Audis, push right to that very, very edge of performance.
There is Stefan Ortelli now, preparing to go out in the number 3 WRT Audi.
What's that? Vroom.
Yeah.
Now, is that relating to anything we need to know or not?
No, I think it's just a little...
Aero Magic.
I think it's just a little cartoon, isn't it?
Yeah. Aero
cool.
Magic.
As we've got 1 minute till the pits open and Q2 gets underway, the second 15-minute session, where we'll see, in theory, the quicker drivers.
Not only is it a race car, you've got an adjustable steering column, and you can literally pull it backwards and forwards or up and down, as you would when you go into your Audi dealership and you buy your R8 or V10. And
I haven't done that yet. That reminds me. I must get around to it.
You need to speak to the producer and get your wages up a bit more. But anyway, the point of doing all this is that normally in a race car everything is tailored to a single driver, but because you're sharing with a teammate, and in the case of some drivers, Robin Freins, for example, and Laurent Vanthoor, different sizes, different builds, so they can have a seat adjustment also, but it's the steering height. I mean, some drivers like a slightly higher steering height than others. Some like it more straight arm, some like it more of an angle in your sort of forearm and elbow, and it's all very much tailored. But of course, normally once they do a driver change in a race, there wouldn't be too much of that kind of change going on in the cockpit. It's easy to get to fumble and then lose concentration and consequently end up losing time.
So the lights go green at the end of the pit lane, and it's going to be Nicky Katzberg in the 88 Reiter Engineering Lamborghini who's going to be the first man to take to the track. And weaving around behind, you can see the ISR car of Marco Bononomi now, the Audi Le Mans driver. He puts the power down, as does Craig Dolby behind in the Nissan. Interested to see what Craig Dolby can do in this Nissan. In general, he's a little quicker than Sean Walkinshaw at the moment. Walkinshaw, a young up-and-coming racer, whereas Dolby is quite experienced now. So yeah. I mean, he's not old, but he's pretty experienced. He might have raced here in A1GP actually.
Super League.
Super League.
Wash your mouth out, Jack.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. Yes, he must have raced here in Super League, Craig Dolby.
I think he did do it, but also, I mean, Craig has raced, for longer than Sean has done, and the reason he's in the team partnering Sean Walkinshaw is to bring that little bit of experience that he's generated over, a variety of seasons, driving a lot of different cars.
So out of the pits now goes the 333 Ferrari. And now that's got Norbert Siedler at the wheel as he takes to the track. Nicky Meyer-Melnoff. They haven't switched over the transponders. That'll be Marcus Winkelhock. And there is Laurens Vanthoor then, about to take to the circuit in the number 1 WRT Audi. As I say, of the 4 races so far this season, they've had 2 pole positions. As they now drop down and out of the pits. We've got the black Bentley there as well, heading out with Jules Simkowiak at the wheel. See what he could do. I'm quite interested to see because this Q2 tends to be a kind of dress rehearsal almost for Q3. You have the quicker drivers who are going to do Q3 out in this session, and it's all about being inside the top 10 to get through to the next session. We remind all teams that the track is between the white lines. So that's a message from race control. So that's saying that curbs are irrelevant. It's all about the white lines.
Yeah, I mean, you see, coming out of turn 4 as an example, there is the red and white marker which demarcates what is the outside of the racetrack, and that would be off the racetrack. So already Nicky Katzberg on his opening lap, because he's the first car to come across the start-finish line to go on to a flying lap, is indicating that, well, I mean, Nicky Katzberg continues to impress me. He did a stunning job in Spa this year to win with the VDS BMW, leaving a bit of black rubber as he comes into turn 8. But I mean, that's confidence. When you've got that degree of confidence, everything flows naturally. Up the hill again, slightly meandering Bentley, and that will frustrate Nicky Katzberg, because it's probably about the worst part of the track to get caught behind another car. Now the Bentley's on it, and Katzberg is going to struggle to find a way past. looks up the inside, but the Bentley doesn't really know it's there. And finally the penny has dropped, and that's rather poor awareness, track awareness. And particularly we've got a limited amount of track time, just 11.5 minutes of this session to go. So Katzberg's lost the benefit of his first flying lap in terms of whatever the rubber on this Lamborghini Gallardo may have been. So it comes across the line. He'll probably still be the quickest in this initial opening lap. Let's have a look and see what the time is. 1:45.7, and he lost certainly the best part of 1 second while the meandering Bentley, but it's Winky. It's little Marcus Winkelhock is the man on the charge.
This
here
is the
again
replay.
we see, I think this is going to show, well, I mean, that's just, inconsiderate. Oh, international.
I think that's P1.
Yeah, Albert von Tunnen, Texas, as a nobleman from Germany would understand that.
So yeah, a bit of frustration from Nicky Katzberg there at the wheel.
Winky,
meanwhile,
1:44.072.
Yep, good lap.
Christopher Mies is the man on the charge. This is the car we've got on screen. Fastest in the first sector.
Just to finish off the thought on Craig Dolby, he did race here in 2010 when he was racing for Tottenham Hotspur, which is always a bizarre thing to say, but he didn't make it through to that kind of final shootout thing. He had a 5th and a 13th in the first of the 2 races, so not a particularly successful time here in Portimao.
Now, if he'd been sponsored by Wolves, he probably would have won everything, wouldn't
he? Exactly, yeah, spot on. So this is Christopher Mies that we can see. He's just slightly up on Marcus Winkelhock's time at the moment. Good lap from Winkelhock of 44.0. Remember, it's 43.9 was our quickest time set by Maxi Buch in that first session. But of course, fuel loads are getting lighter, track's getting a little warmer.
Yeah, track limits are not changing, and again, everybody's going to be given a warning about abuse of track limits, and normally it's on the outside. Christopher Mies, 143.7. That's best part 0.2 of a second quicker than we saw from Max Buch in the Bentley. So lap times in the second of the 3 qualifying sessions, whether that's down to just simply the change of driver. Enzoid was in this car a few moments ago. Now it's Christopher Mies, Winkelhock second, so it's Audi first, second, and in fact third with Van Thor.
But we might have Winkelhock improving again as he comes across the line now. The best of anyone in the middle sector. He does improve, but he doesn't quite go quicker than Christopher Mies. It's a 43.788 for Mies, a 43.798 for Marcus Winkelhock, and that man, Nicky Meyer-Melnhof. So Phoenix seem to be getting on top of things a bit more and competing with with WRT Audi a little stronger as well. But we've had lap times of cars 77, which is the Brito BMW, car 4, which is James Nash and Frank Stippler, car 75, which is Philippe Salaquada, and car 70, which is Christophe Bouchou. They've all been cancelled as a result of track limits.
Well, Vincent Abril, I was going to say, he's currently, of all the cars, 15th and slowest, but
he's on it now.
That's how he would be on it now, because he's gone.
Actually, no, he's 4 seconds off.
Christopher Mies is on another lap, and this is the lap coming up to the conclusion. Fastest overall in that first sector, personal average in the second. So can he make this an improvement? 1:43.7 was his previous fastest overall lap. 1:43.8, so he was a 10th down, so indicating there was pretty fresh rubber on the Audi when Mies went out. But Nicky Katzberg up to 3rd place in the Lamborghini, fastest overall in the 3rd sector.
But I think he's just had his lap time cancelled. Lap 3 of car 88 will be cancelled, which I think is the one he just did. So that's as a result of track limits. So again,
it's good actually. I mean, it's difficult for us trying to bring this over to the.
But it's nice to see it enforced.
I'm glad that we're now having track limits enforced, and eventually the penny will drop.
Yeah.
Because they will realise that they're doing it a really quick lap, and probably when they're doing it when their tyre is at its best. So then they've got to go back and try and repeat it, having used the best of the rubber, and it's frustrating. So eventually the penny will drop.
Yeah, absolutely. So 7 minutes to go, and this is the 77 car of Valdeno Brito climbing up the hill now. On the brakes gets Brito, 3rd place car in the championship this one, after, despite missing the opening 2 races, these pair. The car itself won, but in the hands of Dirk Muller and Maxime Martin. We've actually pretty much had a non-points finish for all of our top 3. Frains and Vanthor crashed in qualifying, so didn't take part in Nogaro. Then Abril and Bouk crashed in practice in Brands Hatch, didn't take part there, and Brito and Abreu missed the first race. But at the moment, they're only 12th quickest with that one.
Just watching the onboard shot of Abreu coming through final turn 15. Interesting that as a consequence of having laps deleted, not using as much of the inside of the curb and coming through turn 15. Now that's acceptable in my opinion. You can put 2 wheels across, but when you get 2 inside wheels going over the what you might call it AstroTurf, it's just green painted cement, then that's abusing track limits. So
the fundamental is you have to have 2 wheels on the black tarmac at all times. That's the fundamental basics.
But if you also put your 2 inside wheels inside that red and white line, that to me is again an abuse of track limits on the inside of a corner, which is what I've seen some of the cars, one of the Brazil BMWs doing. And again on the exit of a corner, if you run your outside wheels over the red and white curbing onto that green sector, which is just basically painted concrete, that again to me is an abuse of track limits. So it's not hard to understand. And the drivers do have a driver briefing, and they're all relatively young and therefore intelligent young racing drivers. Let's not be sexist about it. We'll call them racing drivers. And I don't know what the problem in learning this is. See, that's acceptable. That's acceptable. But going up beyond that, again, just about flirting with the inside of the corner, again, acceptable.
Good. Well, we're getting a thumbs up then for Christophe Bouchou.
Headmaster Watson is clearly on the case here this morning.
So still Christopher Mies, the quickest man of anyone, and in fact he's just gone slightly quicker in the middle sector as well. Now we've got Vincent Abril out there. The biggest problem here for Nicky Katzberg actually in that Lamborghini is that because all of his lap times keep getting cancelled, he currently is down in 15th position, slowest of anyone, because he's yet to set a lap time that the stewards deem to be acceptable. So he could miss out on the top 10 pole position shootout potentially, and if things were to finish like this, he'd start from well down at the back of the grid. So he's got to get on top of that one. This is Vincent Abril then, 4th quickest at the moment on a 44.5. We're on board with Abril.
So let's see how this young Frenchman coming into turn 14.
He's Monegasque. He wants to be known as Monegasque.
Is he a resident of Monaco?
Yes, he is.
Well, then he needs to be living there.
So here he comes through the final corner and across the line. Where's this going to put him? The middle sector wasn't astonishing, and neither was his final sector, so he remains in 4th place.
Yeah, but again, you see, just watching the onboard shots, you get an eye view from the driver's perspective, and the Bentley was just right on the edge of what would be considered to be abusive track limits. Back to Craig Dolby. Let's see how the Nissan Fiat, you can just see on traction coming out of turn 10 down through turn 11 that the car is just, the back end has just about got traction. Remember, a lot of torque from the V6 turbocharged Nissan engine, probably overall the most powerful engine currently within the GT3 paddock. And we go back to the pit wall to have a little look at Sean Walkinshaw. Again, Dolby, that's for me spot on the apex, and yeah, I mean it's that flirting with the line on the outside. So Craig Dolby currently in 9th place and remains 1:45.22 on that last lap. Back to Nicky Katzberg with just 2.5 minutes to go.
So here comes Katzberg through the final corner now, and he'll be hoping he can set a lap that is clean enough to keep him up there. There he goes, up to 5th position, 1:44.580, and Albert a little relieved, and apologies for that. Yes, but it was all getting a bit it was all getting a bit tight there, wasn't it, for a moment? And I think that's the sound of relief.
Yeah, well, it's the sound of the Landon gentry from Germany expressing themselves in a guttural way.
Yeah, exactly. So Albert looks like they'll have made it through to the pole position shootout, which will be for the top 10 cars. We'll get confirmation. There's the standings at the moment, but we'll get confirmation at the end of the session because it's aggregated between this one and not aggregated, sorry, but combined between this session and Q1 to who the top 10 will be. So even though Vincent Abril has done a 44.5, Maxi Bouk's 43.9 will be the time that they take. This is Craig Dolby.
On the bubble.
Yep, absolutely, in 10th place, but he's done personal bests in the first 2 sectors. But he's got a bit of traffic that he's running up to. Hopefully everyone will see him and get out of his way. In fact, they look like they're speeding up now to start a hot lap. So should be all right here, Craig Dolby.
Yeah, I think they're far enough ahead. I mean, it's not going to really interfere very much with the aerodynamics of the Nissan. And the main thing is you know the car's ahead of you, so you think it might come into play. I mean, he's catching them pretty quickly as he goes into the pits and the Mercedes. So he sort of really overran them at the critical part of turn 15. So Craig Dolby up into 7th place, so 144.6 for the Brit, and he'll be, I think, reasonably comfortable. Just half a minute of the session to go, and he's still on a flying lap. Again, just care needed to be taken coming out of turn 1 into turn 2, the track limits issue. So
now Vardeno Brito's down in 13th place at the moment, and he's only managed a 45.2. I think Attila Abreu went quicker than that in Q1, so we will have to wait and see who are the 10 cars that will go through to the final pole position shootout. Vardeno Brito has done a personal best in Sector 1, which is some 0.7 of a second slower than Christopher Meese's time at the moment. Sector 2 is 0.6 down, so yeah, I don't know if this is going to be an improvement for Vardeno Brito. Through the final corner he comes now, and across the line. We'll see whether this improves him at all. It's not going to send him flying up the order as he comes, so he doesn't improve at all. Remains in 13th place for that 77 championship challenging car. They may have made it through to Q3 on the additions, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether Craig Dolby, now the flag's out, and he's probably about the remaining car. There's Jimenez. So Dolby's actually been dumped down to 8th place. And he's coming in. I was going to say, he's been advised, the flag's out. He's lost 1 place. He was on a flying lap in the event that he might have needed the additional lap to get another lap time in. But the team have said in. And it's interesting now. I wonder would that have been the case with the previous operators of this car. JMR Motorsport running it, so somebody in the pit wall has realised time's up, there's nothing to be gained by staying out, we're in the top 10, save another lap on the tyres, and get ready then for, look at that, I mean, way over the inside, but he's coming in this lap. But it's just, you're sitting on the left-hand side, and the car's rolling to the left, so maybe they're not able to quite see their clipping points.
Stefan Otelli just went 3rd quickest, but that lap is now under investigation.
And that was the car that demoted, I think, Craig Dolby, I'm not sure, but certainly somebody did demote Craig Dolby that 1 place, as Vincent Abril, the young Frenchman, Monegasque. He's a French Monegasque, which is a slight paradox because the French don't like the Monegasques, letting the French live in Monegasque. Something like that.
Into the pits he comes, and he's been French all of his career, I'm sure, but now he wears the Monaco flag on his belt and on his car. So here's a look at the results after Q2. So this won't tell us exactly who's going to be going through to Q3. We'll find out that in a couple of moments' time, but it's Audi 1, 2, 3, 4 at the track that supposedly is going to be their weakest of the final 3. Christopher Meese, the quickest man. Marcus Winkelhock, 2nd quickest. Then Ortelli, but his lap is under investigation. Lawrence Vanthor, 4th quickest, then slower than 2 of his teammates, which is an unusual thing to see. Vincent Abril, 5th. Katzberg, 6th. Bononomi, Dolby, Seidler, and Jimenez completing the top 10 in this session. But then you got Frank Stipler in 11th place. Then you got the 77 Brazilian BMW car. Have they made it through to the top 10 shootout? Jules Simkowiak not having the same pace as Max van Splunteren, and Christophe Bouchou ending up slowest of anyone in that 2nd session. So as the sun begins to appear here in Portimao, we wait and see who are the cars that are going to be going through to the pole position shootout. Nick Katzberg believes it'll be him, and I think, the obvious ones will remain there. Your Christopher Meeses, your Marcus Winkelhocks, your Lawrence Vanthors, but it's going to be a little more interesting to see whether the 77 BMW, that's the main one, whether they've managed to make it through. As we've got an Indy 500 fan enjoying the action on track here at the Algarve. Packed weekend of racing here in support of the Blancpain GT Series. We've got the GT Sports Club, which will be coming up later on this weekend, and you can watch that live on the Blancpain GT website. And we've also got FIA Formula 3 here this weekend too, so that's really interesting to watch, and fantastic to see the sort of F1 drivers of the future racing here in support of the Blancpain Sprint Series. Big old event here in the Algarve. This is a nice little, look at them cleaning out. That's the exhaust down there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the exhaust.
It's
It's strange. So it looks like the bodywork's got distorted somehow or other, where the exhaust pipe exits. Yeah, so it's a strange sort of, deflection of the body panel. The carbon fibre panels, of course. Philippe Salaquada having a chat with Marco Bononomi.
So the cars for Q3 are number 2, Christopher Mies, number 6, Marcus Finkelhock, 84, which will be driven by Vincent Abril, number 3, which will be Stefan Otelli, number 1, which will be Laurens Vanthoor, 88, which will be Nicky Katzberg, 75, that man there, Marco Bononomi, and 173, the Nissan of Craig Dolby. So, crucially, missing out is both of the Brazilian BMWs, in particular car 77, Valdeno Brito. He and Attila Abreu, who are third in the championship, they will not be going through into the final top 10 shootout, so they'll be starting outside of the top 10 for the qualifying race later on today. Not good news
and
for
also,
the Brazilians.
James Nash and Frank Stippler, I mean, that's a package, I would have thought, certainly with Stippler in that.
And that Ferrari, actually, too.
Well, again, I mean, we did see handling problems in the early first stage, but again, a bit of head scratching as to why Ferrari, I mean, there are certain races the Ferrari is so competitive, and then, as they say, well, maybe they're not getting the best out of qualifying. Also, Vincent Abril and not Max Buch in for Q3.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's gone through on the time that was set by Maximilian Buch, and they have to declare who is going to be racing in the pole position shootout before.
Yeah. But why would,
I mean, 9 o'clock this morning. But maybe Abril was quickest yesterday, wasn't he? He set the quickest time in free practice, so maybe they thought, well...
Maybe Vincent's the guy that's taking over the mantle from Maximilian Buch, which would be a bit of a...
But it was Buch's time who got them through, who was the quickest today. But there's a bit of a debrief going on here with Sergio Jimenez there on the left and Cacao Bueno.
Look at Bueno's not even looking at Jimenez, doesn't want to talk to him. Jimenez is getting stuck in, giving him a right old bashing up, and he's not even looking at him. Yeah. Look, body language. Go on, guys, go at it. Get stuck in. I mean, go out the back of the garage and sort it out there. Wow, this is good stuff. Ooh. Jimenez is well wound up, isn't he? He knows the camera's watching. He knows it's being transmitted. I mean, Portugal speaks the same language as Brazil. It's all Portuguese. Even team principal walks away from it.
Yeah. It's unusual to see. I mean, obviously, we don't know what they're saying because my Portuguese isn't that great. But it's unusual to see teammates within a car, arguing.
Well, obviously, one or the other has not delivered.
Like they both haven't delivered.
Well, but I mean, whether it's Jimenez blaming Cacabueno, I mean, you could tell the body language. Bueno did not want to look Jimenez in the eye. Jimenez is going at it. A nice one.
That's the other side of the Brazilian garage.
We know it's for breakfast. Anyway, no, there's certainly disharmony. I would think right now.
Absolutely.
In that Jimenez Cacabueno car. Now they've got to sit down and be rational, put all their personalities away to one side and sort it out.
So we will be getting the top 10 shootout underway soon. So
very droll.
He's talking about his baby.
Yeah, very
he's talking
droll.
About his new baby, Nicky Mermanov, became a father since Moscow. In the last 9 weeks it's been since Moscow, so I think that's what he was just...
9 weeks?
9 weeks, yeah.
I can't imagine it was that long ago.
It was July, wasn't it? Middle of July?
It was Yeah, it was. It was the first weekend of July.
Yeah, so now we're first weekend of September.
Where's the time gone?
I don't know. As they come down towards the right-hander. And this is now Christopher Mies who's out there. It'd be great to see Christopher Mies grab a pole position. But we'll have to wait and see what happens then. So we've got Christopher Mies, Laurens Vanthoor's headed out onto the track as well. 10-minute session. Riquelme getting ready to head out too. Stefano Telli, my apologies, is going to be at the wheel of the number 3 WRT Audi. There is our championship leader, Laurens Vanthoor. He and Robin Freins with 78 points at the top of the championship. We're now beyond the halfway point of the season. Just Algarve, Misano and Zandvoort still remaining in this championship year. And Vanthoor saying that actually Misano and Zandvoort are going to suit the Audis a little better than this track. And there's Abril out in the 84 Bentley. He must be feeling a bit of pressure now because Buch's gone a lot quicker than him in that qualifying session, but he's the man entrusted with taking the car around in this pole position shootout.
Yeah, I mean, what we have to assume is that everybody now in these final moments, 8.5 minutes or so remaining, are going to be on either new or extremely young, fresh rubber. So that will have a contribution in terms of relevant lap times compared to what they might have done in their individual sessions. So it's almost like you have to sort of go back to scratch and judge it from what we see in this top 10 shootout, really, rather than referring back to the previous 2 sessions. As we look at Christopher Mies comes across start-finish line to go on to his flying lap. And you is that just that the bodywork just kissing the ground, just coming into turn 1?
You hear that a lot at the hairpin as well at turn 5 because there's such
it's a downhill
undulation.
Yeah.
Just a quick note is that we've only got the top 8 going through to the pole position shootout because of the a little bit smaller grid here this weekend. It's only the top 8 that go through to the pole position shootout. So that's why we were surprised to see the Brazilian BMWs miss out, because we thought they'd be there or thereabouts, but it's only the top 8 that go through because we've got a 15.
So that puts that the Nissan gets in as
so the Nissan's
last
in
of the top 8, so they'll be happy with that performance.
So yes, we're going to have 8 cars vying for pole position, and Laurens Vanthoor is the fastest man in Sector 1 at the moment. Christopher Mies has done a 32.7, as you can see there. Vanthoor's done a 32.6, so pretty much there or thereabouts for both of them. As Mies gets on the brakes, the German racer who's made a very good fist of a GT career, having started off in what was it, the Toyota Avensis Cup, I think it was, in Germany, and has become one of the quickest.
Toyota Avensis Cup.
Yeah.
That's a contradiction, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But he's now become a very, very quick GT racer, Christopher Mies, and he's slightly quicker than Vanthoor in the middle sector. So the two of them are going to be very close, although Vincent Abril's just gone 3/10 quicker than both of them in Sector 1. Through the final corner then.
Good lap, good exit for Christopher Mies. He's coming across start-finish line. So 1:44.0 on that first flying lap.
So 3/10 slower than he has managed previously.
But Vincent Abril, this is Laurens Vanthoor coming across start-finish line. So he needs to find, hundredths of a second or so, and goes 43.875, and he found actually just under 0.2 of a second. But this is the car, the Bentley, fastest overall, Sector 1, personal best, obviously, because he didn't have anything else to beat. And maybe the middle sector of this track is the sector that isn't quite working for the Bentley as well as sectors 1 and 3.
Yes.
Having said that, 1 and 2 are not that much difference. Robin Freund focusing on the timing and scoring to see whether Vincent Abril is going to put the Bentley on the front row of the grid, or critically maybe split the two WRT team cars.
It's pretty neck and neck at the moment. He was 3/10 quicker in Sector 1, 3/10 slower in Sector 2, all running very, very wide on the exit of the final corner. And across the line then comes Vincent Abril, and it is second quickest, splits the Bentleys, a 1:43. Splits the Audis, 1:43.907. And
now that is abuse, believe me. Stefano Telli, I mean, not only does he do it on the inside of the corner, he does it on the... I mean, that,
he's doing his own track.
I suspect car 3's time will be... It says already, car 2 and 84 must respect track limits at turn 8.
And that's the second right-hander as they begin to climb back up the hill.
I'm surprised because we don't get to see much of the exit of turn 8, but clearly they must be doing something that's catching the attention of the race director.
Christopher Mies is pushing again, and he's just done the fastest middle sector of anyone. This is Marco Bononomi, meanwhile, who has done personal best in sectors 1 and 2. As you would expect. Mies has just gone quicker still at 43.458. Good lap there from Christopher Mies. That's 0.4 of a second quicker than Vanthor. Vanthor is a couple of tenths down on Mies's time so far in the first 2 sectors. Bononomi here about to come across the line to go 4th quickest.
Well, I mean, that's Laurens Vanthor. I mean, Stefan Ortelli.
You've got to have 2 wheels on the tarmac at all times.
Does he want to be the pantomime dame or what? I mean, that's entertaining, but it is not going to be something that's going to be permitted. Look on the outside. I mean, having just taken the complete Michael out of the racetrack, he does it again in the exit. So Craig Dolby, 32.7, which it's not a million miles away. Best overall, 32.4.
Vincent Abril's lap time has been deleted, so he drops away. He's going across the line now to go 3rd quickest again, a 44.2. So still slower than he managed earlier on. And Vanthor's just gone quickest in the first sector, fastest of anyone in sector 1 for Laurens Vanthor. He needs to close in because it's currently Christopher Mies in the number 2 WRT Audi who's the quickest man of anyone. Through the final corner comes Craig Dolby. That Nissan kind of bouncing its way through the turn. Keeps all appropriate on the exit of the corner. And where's this going to put Dolby? 6th at the moment. I think they'd be reasonably satisfied, to be honest, with a 6th place qualifying. This is Laurens Vanthor, though, who's gone fastest of anyone in the middle sector as well. The little Belgian whiz kid is coming around turn 14.
The big L.
Yes, exactly. One more turn to go. We go on board with Vanthor. Listen to this.
He has
Tiny
to
lift.
Again, you know, it's just marginal when you see that on-board shot of what he took on the inside of the corner. Was he a little bit on the greedy side? Comes across the line. In theory, might be quickest, but he stays second. 140.
He lost 0.6 of a second in the final sector. Lost 0.6 of a second in the final sector. That's very interesting. Well, we didn't see a mistake, but he was quite close up behind the number 2 Audi in front of him of Christopher Mies. Meanwhile, Vincent Abril has done a good first sector, reasonable middle sector, but it's all about what the Bentley can do in this final sector then. He's probably a couple of tenths of a second down on Christopher Mies at the moment. Mies, meanwhile, has just gone fastest in the first sector. That's flat through there from the Bentley.
I mean, he's having to breathe it a little bit, but I mean, it's as near as flat as anybody has been. So again, the balance of the Bentley, we know it's a very well balanced high-speed car. Second front row start, but 0.3 of a second behind that time Christopher Mies set.
But Mies is pushing.
Ortelli, now Stefan Ortelli was outrageous here. A little bit more conciliatory coming this time. I think that would be acceptable. Watch the exit. You know, Stefan, you know, what do you want to do? Currently down in 5th place and stays there.
Laurens Vanthor has had his last lap time cancelled for track limits at turns 1 and turn 15. But here's Christopher Mies now, who did the fastest first sector of anyone. He hasn't been particularly strong in the middle sector, and he's got Marcus Winkelhock up in front of him.
He's backed out of it.
Yeah, so at the moment it's Mies in that car, Abril in the Bentley, Vanthor in the WRT Audi, Winkelhock there in the Phoenix Audi, then Ortelli, Dolby, Bononomi and Katzberg. So still no, actually, in fact, Nicky Katzberg's on his first flying lap now, so we'll keep an eye out for that one. But he's not particularly on the pace, so we'll see what Katzberg can do. He's going to get one more lap out of this as he comes through the final corner, staying well away from...
Yeah, he did, but he also sounded pretty committed coming into turn 15. You know, he does the right thing, doesn't abuse track limits at any way whatsoever. Goes up to 7th place with a 147.3. Now that is not the last sector was a representative lap time. The first 2 sectors were, although they were personal bests, but there were just laps where he was, or a lap where he was beginning. So this is going to be it. He's got the last lap in which he can go out and try and get the Lamborghini somewhere near the front. We know that Albert von Turner Taxis was fastest overall in the first practice, free practice session on Friday, but the times have suddenly just collapsed. I mean, 145.2
I think
was
it was
the time.
Katzberg that set that time.
Almost. It's almost 1.8 seconds quicker now. in this qualifying segment than it was in the first free practice on Friday afternoon.
So here comes Ortelli, currently 5th quickest. The checkered flag is out here in the Algarve. What is it going to be for Ortelli? He remains in 5th place, and no one actually is setting personal bests out there. Even Nicky Katzberg is a little slower than he'd want to be, I think. Marcus Winkelhock, yeah, reasonable first and second sectors, but suddenly it looks as though we're not having much improvement.
Do you know why?
Why?
They've used the best of their rubber.
Yeah.
They do that when they go out on either new rubber or very young rubber, and every lap that you do, once you've sort of established your base time, you'll be very lucky to see any substantial. I mean, Winky just comes in and no point in continuing the lap. Was that Christopher Mies, or was that
yeah, just Christopher Mies about to come across the line. He remains quickest of anyone, but does a 44.0. So Nick Katzberg really is the man to keep an eye out for. I don't think anyone else is going to improve. Katzberg will, but by how much, I'm not really sure, because his middle sector's half a second down. His first sector was 7/10 down. Across the line goes Katzberg, and he remains in 8th position. So he didn't think that this would suit the Lamborghini quite as much as Moscow, where he took pole, and it looks that that's going to be the case. I don't think we're going to have any improvement here from Vincent Abril either. Well, we're not, because he's 7 seconds off in the middle sector. So it's all over here in qualifying in the Algarve, and it is Christopher Mies who's going to be starting on pole position for the main race later on today.
Well, with no disrespect to Christopher Mies, but who would have put money on the number 2 Audi taking pole position? I think the Bentley was always going to be in the mix, but we always are de facto defer to Audi driver Laurent Van Thor on the second row of the grid alongside Marcus Winkelhock.
And it's 3.5 tenths of a second quicker as well. Here's a look at the results. The top 8 after that pole position shootout. A lot of Audis in there, aren't there? But it is the number 2 Audi of Christopher Mies that's quickest of anyone. 3.76 tenths of a second quicker than Max Buch and Vincent Abril. 3rd place, our championship leaders, Robin Freins and Laurens Van Thor. 4th place on the grid is going to be Nicky Meyer-Melnoff and Marcus Winkelhock. It'll be the second drivers in this list that will be starting the cars later on. Ortelli will be 5th on the grid, 6th on the grid for Craig Dolby and Sean Walkinshaw. I think they'll be happy with that, actually. They weren't expecting much from this weekend, but a 6th place is a good qualifying. Philippe Salaquada 7th, and 8th place for Nicky Katzberg, the man who was on pole last time out in Moscow. So that's a very interesting first few rows, I think, on the grid, because you got the very fast starting Vincent Abril, because don't forget he rocketed away into the lead from 3rd to 1st. Let's have a look back at that qualifying session. But yeah, Abril's a fast starter, and on the 3rd row of the grid, that JRM Nissan is going to be one to watch off the line with Craig Dolby at the wheel at a rolling start. They are going to be very, very quick as well. So very much looking forward to the main race, the qualifying race, which is getting underway at 2 o'clock this afternoon. There's Nicky Katzberg. He was all smiles at the start, less so towards the end of the session. Albert von Taxis was the man out in Q1. But it was that man there, Maximilian Buch, who ended quickest in Q1, and you just wonder if he'd have been out in Q3, maybe he could have wrestled potential pole position away, John.
There's a very good possibility, but ifs, ands or buts don't exist. We've got what we have, and Vincent Abril did a good job. He got the Bentley up into the front row of the grid. That was the big scary moment amongst a number of moments when I thought the Ferrari drivers, Marco Seefried in particular, was really having a battle on his hands in that first practice session.
Yep, looked very lively, that car, didn't it? And also very lively, the rear of that Nissan. The power it puts down is phenomenal. Watching it coming out of the hairpin just in free practice yesterday, and it was, really getting the back end out all the time on the power. That was Albert von Taxis across the line. And, it was Nicky Katzberg, wasn't it? Just about making it through to the top 8 pole position shootout. And then we had our line astern running from Christopher Mies and Laurens Van Thor in the final Q3 session. And they were ending up 1st and 3rd quickest, with Christopher Mies coming out on top. I think Mies will be over the moon. Oh, that was Van Thor running wide at turn 1. That's where he got his lap time disqualified for. But it's the number 2 car of Christopher Mies who ends the session quickest, and he will be on pole position for the qualifying race, which is coming up at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Mies slowing down around the right-hander. And he is the man who will start on pole position as the checker flag fell. See you at 2 o'clock.